Hello everyone and welcome back to another Photo Mish Mash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 70. Welcome back
now
to another episode.
Yeah, all you live folks are so lucky you get me along with the sound checks, and those other folks who watch afterwards, I'm sorry that you don't get to see all of the mess ups that happened before because they're so exciting. This is that weekly photography show where we mash up the week's news, gear review bits, recent releases, topical discussions about photography and gear. Did I say mash it all up?
Yep.
And serve it all to you. I'm Toby, photographer and educator.
And I'm Christina. I'm a full-time wedding photographer.
And you started to ask me before sound check problems if someone was tuning into the show the first time.
Yeah, what can they expect?
They can expect, well, isn't that what I say when I say motion with my hands, mash everything up together and talk about the week's photography news, gear reviews?
Yeah.
Answer reader questions, viewer questions.
Answer questions, that's right. And then we usually have a discussion sometimes. And then we move on to the after show, which is something that we have been doing as of late, where we kind of, we cap the questions at a certain number and then we go over a little bit and answer more questions, and then we cut that part out. So if you're not watching live, then you maybe miss out on the after show unless you are a Patreon supporter, in which case you do get to see the after show. But anyway, that's
and
what this is about.
We've got discussion items that we're going to talk a little bit about in the after show.
But the meat of everything is discussed during this
What if you're a
time.
vegetarian?
Some vegetables can be meaty.
Which vegetables?
Okay. We're derailing from
Mushrooms.
the point of...
Mushrooms can be meaty.
Okay. So, let's get right to it.
That's right.
So the first thing is the week in review. So tell us about what happened this week.
What happened this week?
So actually, I want to
okay.
start because I see you're doing something also. It's kind of like a week in review, kind of like a preview. So last week we had a podcast, and I got very fired up about the Sony A7R Mark II, which we have been testing. And a lot of people took it very personally and got very offended. And I said that the focusing was not as good as the 5D Mark III. And I might be wrong. But, the reason that I say that I'm not wrong is because we haven't yet had the opportunity to test with Sony lenses. I have read and seen on the internet that the focusing system, while it's fast, it's still not quite the same as, regular DSLRs with mirrors. And we did do some more testing though, and shot, basically put the same lens on two different cameras and focused on the exact same thing and went back and forth. And it still isn't quite as fast. That is not to say that this isn't a great camera.
Where was I during this testing?
We did it together. Remember, you were standing on the doorway and I focused on one spot and then I focused on the other and I went back and forth.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
We're going to draw a little line down the center of the table.
Okay.
Canon fangirl side.
No.
No,
Excuse me.
But no, here's the issue that most people had. Some people got a little, worked up. And that's fine. You got people talking and discussing, and it's good. I like that. But what most people had an issue with, and what I agree, is that you were judging the focusing system based on an adapter it's running through to Canon lenses.
Yeah.
And we tomorrow have Sony lenses arriving, more than just that 28 millimeter that I've been using, that will allow us to test the native focus. Now, I will say this at last week's wedding, and we don't want to spend this whole next more than 2 minutes rehashing this discussion because I'm tired of it. That I shot at last week's wedding, mostly using the 24-70 Canon and 70-200 Canon with the Metabones on the Sony. And I was very happy with the speed and the consistency of that focus again and again and again, and did not notice any significant difference from Canon. I'm still not sure what you said we tested. We stood in the doorway. I remember
you stood in the doorway, and I put my 85-1.2 on the Sony.
Okay, again, yes, the adapter.
Yeah, okay.
That adapter struggles with some lenses.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I had anticipated, I had expected, I bought the Sony. So for anybody who thinks that I have some sort of vendetta against Sony, I bought it. So I love this camera. This is a great camera. But I just think that there's a lot of hype surrounding it. And we actually have an article that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the episode.
I moved that to the after show.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, I think it should be discussed.
Something else we disagree on. Okay, all right.
So, anyway, point being is I'm just talking about this and giving you time to sort out whatever you need to.
Oh, wow.
Need to sort out.
Oh, really? You're stalling for me? I was just posting
stalling
on Facebook that we're live.
Okay, so we can review what else.
Okay, so I have to go back to the script. Let's see. Well, this ties into this, so we are going to discuss this a little bit longer. I posted a teaser on Facebook, I think it was on Sunday, that said 100 and, of course it's not going to load in any kind, 1,531 versus 840. Guess. And you guys like posts like that. I like posts like that. It's fun. And the answer was, some of you were very close. I don't know if anybody exactly got it, or it looks like, was the number of shots I took with the Sony versus the Canon, in that order. So I took 1,531 pictures with the Sony, 840 with the Canon, and that right there, folks, says a whole lot. Because I've gone to a lot of weddings over the last couple of years with lots of other extra cameras at my side. None of them came close to shooting 10%, maybe even 5% comfortably for me, knowing that I had to get these shots and that they were going to work well. And this camera, with the Metabones adapter, and the 24-70 and 7200 performed very, very well. One thing that I'm interested in understanding more, though, is we've got this phase detection points, huge number of them all across the frame. But something with the adapter happens where you really only get this really consistently good focusing near the center. As you start to move your focus point out further, it suffers even with the best lenses and the Metabones adapters, certainly the Comlite adapters too. So there's something else going on there.
Could you tell us what problems might arise as a result of you only being able to rely on the center focus point?
Yes, well, we've looked at some of these pictures together, and some of my framing is not great because as I was realizing I need to keep my focus centered, my composition with people walking, because I was, people that are static and stuff, sure, you can refocus, you can focus and recompose, but the walkers coming down the aisle, I didn't frame them very well. They're all kind of centered, and that's not good. Christina now has to crop all of those. The good news is you've got so much room to crop, but that doesn't make her happy.
That does not make me. That's a lot of time spent in post-processing.
I know.
Cropping.
I'm sorry.
It's a lot of time.
I know. And there are, a lot of people, who commented last week feel like, dinging this camera or lowering its score or its, efficiency in our minds is insulting if we're just talking about using it with the Metabones. But so many people are writing me and saying, how is this camera with Canon glass? I'm hearing that question way more than people are like, is it focus better than the other model? My full review, I hope, cross my fingers, will be out Saturday. I think we're in good shape to finish that up by then. I'm really excited to share with you all of my thoughts. And battery life too. I had airplane mode turned on. I went through 2.5 batteries, and I'll be talking about a system I have for keeping other battery charged no matter where I am, just in my camera bag. It works, and I was perfectly happy with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if we're not going to talk, if we're not going to discuss this article now, then I would like to say that there is something to be said for the gist of this article, which, if we'll link it down below. But the Sony isn't a system the way that Nikon and Canon are. And I can totally see that. So while it's an excellent camera, what we've been talking about in terms of the lenses, and I mean, I know that they have some great Zeiss lenses that are beautiful, but
be careful about pissing off the fanboys again, including
look,
me.
If you're looking for validation, this A7R Mark II, this is not the place for it. I mean, I'm not gonna, again, like, it's a great camera, but I'm not gonna be ditching, which is what I thought that would happen. I really thought that this would make me feel like I can transition from my Canon gear slowly to, you know, a mirrorless system, and I don't feel like I can do that. So that is the only thing that I'm saying.
What's going to upset people is I don't feel like you've given it enough time. I think that's a harsh statement to make this early on. You have not spent enough time with it to make that statement.
I think that if I were shooting more video at weddings, I think that would change things. But I mean, like we said, I was really hoping to be able to use my Canon lenses reliably. I found that I couldn't do that. I'm sure that Sony has some amazing lenses that focus really fast, but I'm not gonna shell out like 5-10 grand to acquire a whole new system when what I've got, it works. You know, one of the things in this article that I really liked was that the author talked about camera being a tool more than like an accessory. And that's kind of how I see my gear. If I have a tool that does the job, then why change it for something else that isn't?
Yep. Your points are I think your points are very valid. I don't have any argument about that. I do think you should give it some more time. And I
will, because
I do think it's more of a complete system. I've started researching this heavily because I'm looking at could I change? And there's good lenses, there is flash systems, there is some sacrifices to be made or some compromises to be made. Also, please don't get my excitement about this camera as that I'm saying it's the perfect camera or it's the perfect camera for everybody. Later in this episode,
just like I'm not saying that this is a horrible camera that nobody should buy.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, I feel like we're trying to coddle everybody.
No, I like it. Be incendiary.
I'll be incendiary.
Make those statements. But I want to be fair and balanced because that's important to me. People are like, oh, Sony's paying him. You know, these folks that
just like Canon isn't paying
the big names that are jumpers, that have jumped ship. They've been paid, or not, or they've made a deal. Or the people that aren't talking about Sony at all, they're Canon shooters who've been sponsored by Canon.
Yeah, I don't feel like you can say that for sure. Not like that's a big blanket statement. All right.
Okay. Well, wait. One more bit of Sony. I'm sure we're gonna come back to this in a second. I haven't been able to click over to.
We're gonna deter everybody who's watching from.
Is one of my other concerns was how robust is this camera? It feels good in the hand. It feels well made.
Oh, are you gonna tell people about your little accident?
You just spoiler. But compared to the Canon 5D Mark III, which I know I've never dropped my 5D Mark III, but it's been banged against tables lots. It's been well used by a professional photographer, and I haven't had any problems other than that time I let it get really wet. Which, by the way, the Sony has gotten just as wet twice now, and it's still fine. So anyway, at the wedding, somehow, as I said, I don't think I've ever dropped any other camera. Somehow, I dropped the Sony. Not just dropped it, but walking across the dance floor and threw it on the ground. I think I was going back to put it in the peak capture thing, but I wasn't even near that, so I shouldn't even said peak capture because it wasn't that thing's fault at all. I wasn't even near that. I was like just moving it across my body. I should say somebody bumped into me or something. I need some excuse. It just
get to the point.
It flew out of my hands and hit the floor. Now this band was loud, but two groomsmen were right there. They turned around and they heard it hit the floor. They watched it end over end at least twice. And they're like, ooh, that's bad. And outside I'm like, it's fine, because I'm not gonna act all like, oh, my camera. But inside I was like, oh, my camera. Picked it up. It seemed fine. It was kind of dark in there, so I was like, okay, turned it off, turned it back on, took a picture, seemed fine. Took a picture, zoomed way in, checked sharpness. It had the Sigma 50 on the end with a lens hood. I got, you can share my screen. It's in the daylight now. I've found indications that it has been dropped. It looks like it hit at least one time right on the side of the grip. I can't show you the actual camera because it's what we're using to record this episode with. There it is. You can see quite a ding. It looks like somebody bit it right around the record button. And over on the other side of the camera, the LCD
doesn't fit quite right.
Doesn't sit flush anymore. That's it though.
Okay.
So.
I don't feel like we need to give people like that much detail.
No, okay. I want to give you all of the details.
Well, so that is to say that is a sturdy camera.
I'm bummed I dropped it. Happy that it turns out to be a sturdy camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sensor, though, if you've been following you on social media, does get pretty dirty pretty quickly. Which again, that does not mean that it's a horrible camera. And it doesn't really seem to affect image quality, though I imagine that if you accumulate enough dirt, that at
layers. Like,
yeah.
Like when you dig down into the soil and you get
and
the,
it
like,
seems
the top
like
soil and
that's like, you know, you'd be there in like 3 months if you don't clean your sensor every month.
Share this for a second. I posted this on Instagram. Lightroom has a neat feature where you can bring in a picture and then say visualize spots, and it does some kind of crazy tone curve thing that really just makes the spots show up. This was a picture of a white piece of paper that then I applied that to, and wow! I mean, I started to see some spots in my landscape photos in Iceland, and then when I came home, I thought, well, you know, I should talk about cleaning sensors. It's one of the things people ask me fairly often about. And for comparison, I shot with the 5D Mark III in the same setup. This is at like f22, so that's when you really see your spots. f8 and below, you don't see them, although as Christina says, after the layers build up after a while, it might impact the image quality some. 5D Mark III, I don't know the last time that I've cleaned that sensor. Years? At least a year. It had a couple spots.
Yeah.
But this looks like a freaking petri dish.
Well, the Canon 5D Mark III is probably, well, it's got the sensor, the mirror going for it that probably blocks some of it. And then also it's got the curtain.
Right.
The shutter itself.
Right. But, you know, I've heard from other mirrorless shooters, you know, after I posted this, I mean, same thing. Here's a GH4, for example. I mean, the sensor is right there. I haven't tested it.
But it's not as right there as it is on the Sony, I feel like.
It really
Sony is really close.
There.
Almost like, I mean, I don't think that this would happen, but I feel like it feels weird to like even put a lens on there because you feel like you're going to ding it or something.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, not, like, I don't think that would happen, but that's how close it is that you just feel like...
Part of my theory about my Sony dirty sensor is that using the adapters, these are not weather-sealed adapters, not dust-sealed, and that's an extra gap then that we're talking about fine particles.
But you use the Metabones adapter on the GH4 all the time, and it's not as dirty.
We never... You can't say that. I have no idea. We never shoot at the GH4 above f5.6.
Yeah, but you can see the dirt on the Sony. You can't see the same kind of dirt on the Lumix, and right now it's just been returned from cleaning.
When I don't know if they cleaned it. They're so mean to me.
Yeah, can't you see? I mean, I remember seeing the dust and the dirt on the...
Okay, some of it. A lot of it was hard to see with the naked eye. That's why I recommend a little magnifying loupe. But cleaning it... Oh, well, here's the funny thing. Yes, Sony has a sensor cleaning thing too. It uses the in-body image stabilization to vibrate the little sensor. I took a picture right after I did that to see how much of the dust would have fallen off. It looked exactly the same. Exactly the same. Maybe I should have run it a couple times. So, let's see. Okay.
All right.
Some people say I was panting on the sensor because that's why it's so dirty, because I'm fawning over the Sony. I do really like it.
You are fawning over it.
Okay. The other thing, speaking of adapters, the other thing that went out this week was a review of the Comlight versus the Metabones. Gosh, you know, just go watch it. I'm still in communication with the Comlight folks to figure out why this Micro Four Thirds one works not at all. The one that I've been using on the Sony, It's fine. It's not as good as the Metabones, but
I had like no success focusing with it.
oh, that's true. With the lenses you tested, it all depends on what lenses you tested. It has a more limited number of compatible lenses, and those do not focus quite as fast. But we're talking about $75 versus $400. So if you need it to work, you got to spend the money. If you don't care if it works, or what I said in the review is if you're manually focusing.
If you want to spend $3,200 on a camera and you don't care if your lenses focus, then get the ComLight adapter.
Or just buy some Sony lenses. Which I see people saying Sony lenses are so expensive.
They're not that much more expensive than Canon lenses.
No, they're not. They're comparable. These
I
are
think
high quality lenses. They don't have the cheap lenses Canon has.
Right, they don't have as much of a... See, and that's the other thing, like, you can't really, like, ease into it, you gotta, like, just spend the thousands, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So... Oh, then there was also the the first thing that you change when you get a new camera.
Oh, right.
Which was a very popular video. You guys totally fell for that link baity title.
It was
accurate. But it was an enticing article.
Enticing. Thank you. Can you lead with that? You always do the second thing so much better than the first thing. Just okay. And you know what? There was discussion there about Magic Lantern. So that was a video about how I set back button focus on the Canon. It is the exact same thing I did on the Sony as well. I do it on the GH4. Basically, any camera that lands in my hand, the first thing I do is figure out how to turn back button focus on. That works for me. I love it. It's simply a matter of being in control of your camera. That's why we advocate manual. We don't like the camera to make many of its decisions for us. We're smarter than the camera most of the time. And I don't always need the camera to refocus every shot. I get focus, especially landscapes. You get focus, take a shot. Maybe recompose slightly if you're shooting at like f8, f16, something like that ridiculous for a landscape. Even if you shift a little bit, you don't need to refocus and you don't need to waste that time. So that's one of the things. But I also talked in that video about the time-lapse video mode and the intervalometer built into the 5D SR. Just 'cause I kind of like that they put that in there now. It's about time. And people said, oh, do I have this in my 70D? Do I have this in my T5i? In the T5i, you can install Magic Lantern and you have this frames per second override. Remember that time we filmed the Mish Mash with the frames per second override on?
Oh my God, yes.
And it basically...
Do you guys remember that? That was so bad.
Let's move on. It basically creates a video for you that is a time-lapse movie because it's just, you can make the camera record a video at 1 frame per second. That's basically 1 shot every second, or 0.5, so 1 shot every 2 seconds. It's pretty neat. Magic Lantern is out for the 70D. People were asking, ooh, can I do that on my 70D? But the frame per second override is not in the current alpha build that they call it. I put the Magic Lantern on my 70D this week. It was very easy to do. It does give you some other beneficial things, but that frames per second override is not there. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
We can skip the barely escaped with our lives.
Yes.
Folks, just remember, show notes will be linked right down below this video. You can go and everything we talk about is clickable, so you can go to the source and read all of it and then come back and tell us your opinion about that. And remember, thumbs up is always appreciated, and if you are sharing awesome stuff in the comments or in the chat like you all are doing,
if you're watching live.
If you're watching live, take a moment to stick it in the comments as well so that everybody else can see that and talk among themselves or argue, as so many of you like to do. The other gear on the table section, we moving on to that?
Oh gosh, we're not even on that yet?
6:36, how did that happen? Oh, well, we started a little bit late because we had...
Like 7 minutes late.
I think it was a little bit longer than that. I just want to say this, for people who are scared about cleaning their sensor, again, my video will be coming out, but I found that the rocket blower took off most of the Sony sensor dirt. So you didn't even have to touch the sensor. There's still some left. I'll show you how to actually touch the sensor to clean it, but if you're desperate for getting your sensor cleaner, little rocket blower, they're great. Okay. And yeah, I guess the GH4 is back. We're not using it to record this video though, because we really
We like the Sony.
We like the Sony look for video. It's nice. It's nice to have that full frame sensor back and not have to deal with the crop factor.
I'm really looking forward to shooting video with the Sony when we go to Europe next week. Oh, speaking of which,
does that mean you'll carry the extra batteries? Because that is when this camera's battery system sucks. It's about you can just...
Okay, it's too much. Sorry. But we should tell people that we are not going to be...
We'll do a Tuesday show.
Oh, okay. We might do a Tuesday show, everybody.
Yeah. Because this time, Wednesday, we will be in the air. Sound effects for you. Flying. Where are we flying to?
We are flying to Paris.
Via?
The air? Like, what?
We actually, Reykjavik. We stop over in Reykjavik.
Oh, right.
But we don't get to go out.
I'm not sure why that was necessary to tell people, but okay.
I just want to remind everybody that I've been to Iceland and you haven't. That's pretty much it.
Oh, okay.
So, Paris for a few days. That's a little vacation. We probably will only produce one little vlog from that we'll put up for our Patreon supporters. But then, shortly after that, we'll be landing in Greece with McKay Photography Academy again, and I am excited. This is going to be a fun trip. We'll be working on the every other day vlog that will be out there for everybody. Similar in style to the Iceland one. That is kind of a little bit of here's what we're up to, a little bit of here's a photography tip, and I expect that they are going to be a lot better because somebody is really good at thinking up great things.
You told me a great idea the other day that you thought it was going to shut down, but then I didn't. I thought it was a great idea. Anyway, okay.
Let's pat each other on the back. We're both wonderful people.
So let's move on to news, and maybe we'll do it really, really fast because we're running on for too long. Remember last week when we said we were going to set a timer and then say like, oh.
That was the quick section of the news. We're not to that part.
Oh, no, this is the quick section of the news.
Okay.
Okay. So cool post series by this photographer of instruments, photos of the inside of some instruments, which is really cool. I'm going to switch over to the screen, and they look like giant rooms.
Yeah, cavernous
it's so
rooms.
Cool.
This is really cool. Again, we'll have links down below to this stuff. The flute, and I don't know if that's the cello or the violin.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And then I don't even know what we're inside of here. What is that?
Is that a piano? No.
No. Organ? I don't know. But you can go over to this article right here where they talk about how they captured this. They used a medium format camera mostly, and for most of the shots they actually got instruments that were already opened up because they were being repaired, or they would cut an instrument, I think. They said the flute was one of the most challenging because everything was mirrored inside, a lot of trial and error. There's not a lot of detail about this, but it's still just neat. It's, it is offering a perspective that we don't usually see, and anytime you can do that, you're likely to grab people's attentions, and these are really beautiful.
Great. We will move on to the next article, which is, just doing like 5 different things here.
The Princeton.
Yeah, so Princeton has been testing this technology that basically automates removing distracting elements, and it's supposedly still in its infancy, and it sounds like maybe pros won't really utilize it as much as just, like consumer.
Your casual photographer.
Yeah, so, yeah, pretty cool though.
Yeah, if you can see some examples here. So is it basically like content-aware fill in Photoshop, but it automatically works?
Seems like it. I just don't, I'm always against the idea, call me like, what's the appropriate word? Like...
Canon fangirl? Oh, that's the other segment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was the other segment. I don't know. I just don't feel like really technology's gonna know what a distracting element is. you can't.
Well,
really
it's similar to what we were advocating a few minutes ago of being in control of making the picture. You probably also want to be in control of the post-processing. But their point here is that 4,000 images a second. Where would that note go? A lot of images are uploaded to Facebook. 4,000 images per second last year to Facebook. And the overwhelming majority of these photos are casual. So there are probably a lot of distracting elements in a lot of those pictures, and they might be better off. But yeah, it is really interesting to kind of figure out how this machine learning works, and what if it goes crazy and takes over the world and says humans are the distracting element, and it just removes us from the picture.
Well, then we'll just move on to the next story, which doesn't talk
When
about
you
that.
give me the hand move for it, it's...
Well, you're just going on and on and on too much. It's just a little too much. A little too much.
Okay.
I could just cut you off too. I could be less discreet about it.
That might be better. Okay.
I'll try that.
So Amazon's giving away, if you buy a camera of, was it like $500 or maybe even $100 or more, Amazon's giving you a free storage space. 1 year free, with any photo or video product over $50. This is the same thing you have if you already have the Prime. So a lot of people have Prime, but if you don't and you buy something over 50, hey, that's pretty snazzy.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Instagram.
Yeah, so big news coming from Instagram this week.
Last week.
I guess last week. So they have changed their, you could only be able to post square format pictures, and so people would use other software to sort of have their portrait and landscape pictures squared up and posted to Instagram. So that they wouldn't be cropped. And now they are allowing portrait orientation and landscape orientation photos without having to go to an external app. And that is the very reason, so we'll just combine both of those articles and just talk about them. That is why they decided to do that, because they found that 1 in 5 people were going to a different app and taking pictures with the other app and editing the pictures with that other app. And those were kind of, I don't know.
Well, putting them up with the bars.
Right, with the white space on them.
Yeah, the letterboxing or something. Right?
Yeah. So now that is no more. Now you can upload your landscape and portrait pictures. But I will not be doing that as much. I tried it this week, and I just, call me particular, call me a perfectionist. But when you look at my actual feed, I like the consistency of the white space much better. So I think that you either go square, like all square, or you have white space. And I just don't feel like they mix well together. Or I actually...
Can you share your feed?
Sure. Actually, I just feel like I don't really like the square format. I like to be able to see all of my pictures, even on the main feed, which I think is...
Now it hasn't...
I don't know, it's kind of a big deal to me. I feel like if somebody comes to my Instagram, they look at my feed, then, I want it to look as consistent as possible. So...
Right. But here's the question. If you put it up in this way that you've been doing, these, where you letterbox them on the sides, it's portrait orientation, won't it force to a square here still?
No.
No, it won't.
It's not doing it.
Right, I see. Yeah, you're right. So you put one up and you're unhappy because it doesn't look. Now, you haven't been doing it that long.
I have long enough that I'm happy with the way my feed looks. And now it's all weird. I wanted to...
All right.
I almost want to delete that picture, but it's so popular.
Just be messy.
No. It's all about consistency. All right.
Consistency is important. So yeah, it's interesting. So just 20% of the picture. Well, okay, let's move on. All right. Peak Designs is releasing a lens changing system to kickstart backers' first okay, we don't care about that part, but let's look at this lens system for a moment.
Yeah.
And Christina, let's ask you, how soon will you be walking around a wedding with this?
Never. Not soon, but never. Not just because it looks dorky, which it does, but I would be able to overlook that if it were...
You've hurt some people's feelings out there.
For me, it looks dorky for me. But okay, so, it doesn't actually look dorky because it's functional. But let's think about this for a minute. I am a really clumsy person. If I had my lenses just like out in the open like that with no protection whatsoever, I would just be banging into everything and they would be coming off of that adapter left and right, and I would potentially be dropping them. I really like the practicality of being able to twist it off and having it so handy and not having to reach on the side for a bag, but
Yeah.
I don't like that it's so open like that. I understand you can't really have it both ways, but
Giving you the wrap
okay.
up. Going on, so.
Wrapped it up.
I like dorky things. This past wedding was the first that I've worn a Peak Design system for. I just had the little clip on my belt. I was really happy with it. Hips started to get a little sore towards the end of the night, but remember, that's 10 hours of a camera that was on my hip often, sometimes with the 70 to 200 on there. And I was really happy with the system overall. I don't know though. This, in some ways, I like that it's so accessible, but in others, you have to click it and you're basically like doing double the work every time you want to switch a lens. Whereas if the lens is in your bag, and most of the time during the wedding, we don't have the end caps or the, what do you call the things? Lens caps. End caps or lens caps on. You pull it out, you take the one lens off, drop it in, pull it out, put the other one on. In this case, you're going to be click, release, then, what do you do? Yeah. So,
Well, I think
for some people it'll work well. I don't think it's something I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah, I just mostly from like the protection perspective, I don't like it. Especially on my hips. Like I would be banging into everything with my hips. I do anyway. So, okay, what is next?
Well, Roy shared an article about the UV filters. How much
yeah.
do they really protect? We're just going to skip over it and say if you're interested in it, you can go read it. But spoiler, I didn't actually look at it carefully. But the fact is that a lens hood is going to be better in most cases. I could say that. So, Scott shared an article about the CERN photo walk. Want to shoot in the world's largest particle physics lab. That's kind of a neat idea. There's probably so many amazing bits to capture in there. All kinds of like repeating patterns and things of that sort. This is similar to when we did our photo shoot in the yogurt factory. Remember that?
Very similar.
I liked that. Was a lot of fun, except the lighting was terrible.
Yeah, lots of fluorescent lighting.
Yeah, the lighting is terrible. But so this is neat. Next month they're holding a special photo walk, and there is a way to apply here. So
I don't know if it would be photogenic for me, but I would just want to go and check it out.
Be pretty
just
neat.
Experience it.
Yep. We've also got Eagle takes drone and down in mid-flight. Sounds like we got about one of these angry at a drone bird a month. And or maybe this was the one I heard about, August 12th it happened. Drones are capable of capturing amazing footage, but in this case, this drone is flying along. And let's see, when does the, there we go. It's coming up. And there comes the eagle. Bam! Moral of the story, don't mess with Mother Nature. There was a bird in Iceland that was a little grumpy at David's drone and flew at it. And David immediately brought his drone down. So, I don't know. Always keep your eyes out when you're flying, and what can you do in this case? Eagles are fast and powerful. There we go. All right. Oh, you know what else, in case you missed it, wrapping back up to that, is Tamron has announced, let's make this the last story we'll talk about here before we go to, what is it, reader questions? Tamron Tamron's announced a pair of full-frame prime lenses, a 35 f1.8 with VC, which is their image stabilization, vibration compensation, and a 45 millimeter f1.8. They look they're going to be about $600. They seem very similar in design. What do they look like to you?
Sigma.
Yeah. I think that's great. Tamron has taken a page. Sigma's prime lenses. We have the 35 and the 50 f1.4s. They're big, they're heavy, they're expensive, but still cheaper than Canon's. We love them. But for somebody who wants to save a little bit more money, maybe doesn't need f1.4 or wants image stabilization for some video shooting, these look like they could be very nice. The early look I had at the MFT charts, they look like they're going to be quite sharp. They're also capable of focusing very close. I will show people this article real quick just so they can show. Yeah, they don't. You know what's nice is I appreciate this. They're touting the close focusing abilities, but they're not calling them macro lenses because they're not. Canon calls anything that can focus closely a macro lens. They're like, yeah, that's a macro. No, it needs to be 1:1 to be a macro lens. 1:1 or better, which means the real size of it needs to be the real size on the sensor. These are like 1:2 and 1:3. So they're not macros, but you can certainly focus nice and close. You can get some great detail, and you're gonna get some great bokeh or bokeh with that f1.8 and 9 blades of apertures. So it's nice. It's really nice to see more and more lenses. I heard from at least one Pentax shooter, sad that they're not coming out with a Pentax mount. Really feels like that market is shrinking. Also, I'm personally bummed because no Sony FE mount. They're coming out with a Sony Alpha mount, which is for their other Alpha system.
You're missing out.
FE. They've made, or Sigma's made FE lenses, but we need to get to this point. This comes back to this discussion of kind of like a bigger ecosystem, and I've talked about this before. And Sony's ecosystem is still pretty small. You're limited in your options. Well, for some people, that doesn't matter at all. For some people, that's an issue. If we get
to the after show where we'll discuss this article, it kind of mentions that too, that there is not as great, or Sony doesn't really play super well with third party and all the other manufacturers. So there isn't as much support and as many third-party accessories, lenses, and things like that you can buy for it. So that is kind of a limitation because it sort of makes Sony be the be-all, end-all of, all of the lenses and all the accessories, and that doesn't really allow for competition and sort of, not that that's really made Canon, obviously, really do anything with their sensors up to this point, all the competition from Sony. But anyway, I'm going on, and we need to move on.
Okay. See what happens when I don't give you the move on symbol?
Yeah.
Okay. And the news that the EOS M3 is coming. This broke like right after the show. I got an email from, I don't know if I'm allowed to say who I get my special emails from.
From your special contact.
Well, anyway, I wasn't allowed to say anything till the next morning, but right after the show, when I was like, mirrorless coming, Canon to mirrorless America, whatever, then they announced that they're bringing the EOS M3 to America. It's been available since, early spring outside of America. I think actually really only Japan, maybe European countries, I don't know. But I don't know. I was shooting with the T6S today in this, the side-by-side. When are we doing that? Next? We're doing that next.
Yes.
One, I was remembering, I really like the T6S. Form factor-wise, the fact that it's got the dual control wheels, it's a nice camera to shoot with. But I was using live view a lot because they're shooting at funny angles. I wanted to be shooting similar that I was shooting with the Sony. And its autofocus system is not great. It struggles way more than the Sony does. And my point is the EOS M3 is the same autofocus system, and it's the only focus system you have in that camera because you only have live view. You only have an LCD. So when you put that camera up next to the A6000, the A6000 is, how old is that? 18 months old? Canon, well, you're not. I don't see it selling well, but there is a large group of people out there that are unaware of brands outside Canon and Nikon, and they've been shooting with a Canon point and shoot, and so they may buy into this, but I do not think it's in numbers enough to make any significant dent into the mirrorless market for Canon. They need to bring it with their big guns if they want to be in mirrorless, and not kind of this half beep stuff.
I would just like to add that I was looking at the chat, and a couple people corrected me and said that the E-mount is an open mount.
What did you say? You didn't say it was?
E-mount isn't. Well, I didn't exactly say that it wasn't. I just was talking in general about Sony technology, but I think that that's less.
No.
It's less of an issue now.
Right, they're proprietary in some of their other ways, but not with their lenses.
Right.
Yeah, and also the other bit of news that came out at the same time as that Canon EOS M3 is that Canon is updating their 35mm f1.4L lens. It looks like it's going to be exceptionally sharp, control chromatic aberration very well. Is it worth, what is it? It's like $1,500, and you can get the Sigma for $849. We'll see. We'll put them side by side. I cannot imagine that it's that much sharper, that you want to pay that much more. Weather sealing, that is a benefit.
All right. We are now going to move on to the Instagram challenge, and then we are going to, I guess, put me to the test to see if I can tell the difference between the Sony camera. We'll tell you more in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
But just mention that Scott very nicely did fill in the photos from space. We've got the stunning deep space photo reveals new details of the Orion Nebulae. And that link is right down below. It is amazing.
Okay.
It's taken with that multiple mirror telescope in Chile. All right, this week's Instagram challenge, this past week's Instagram challenge was pet. And I didn't go back and look at past challenges. I think this might have been one of the most participated in yet. So many good photos, so many cute photos. And it was doubly hard for me because I'd go through and I'd be like, oh, it's a wonderful photo. Oh, that's not such a good photo, but that's somebody's pet. And sometimes people would put these little stories next to them, and I'd be like, oh.
My challenge was like, okay, cute pet picture. Ignore the fact that it's adorable and just focus on photography and good photography. So that was really challenging because all of your pets are adorable. So with that being said, let's go on over to your winners.
Can I click that? No, I have to click that every time. Okay. My winner is Chris at Crispy. Somebody doesn't like baths.
So cute.
So cute. This picture has everything I need. It's got this awesome eye contact. It has great light, and it is a story. Here's a doggy, get in the shower, and his eyes say to me, rescue me.
Aww.
I like it. Great shot. I've got runners up. David.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that one.
You didn't even go that far back, huh?
I did go that far back. I just didn't see it.
I just, I really like it. I just love how
so much negative space.
Dark and negative space there is. Yes, it's
cool.
Great. Thank you. And Fiona Lawrence's.
So cute.
So cute. Just really, it's not always easy to capture dogs running towards you.
Nope. They move fast.
The focus here is great. The lighting is great. I love it. Nicely done. Let's move on to... I got one more honorable mention. Because I want to give a shout out to Eduardo.
Oh my God.
Who's got a great picture. And, as he says, go search Eduardo... I don't want to say your last name because I'm going to pronounce it bad. Jimenez?
Yeah, Jimenez.
He does a little kind of time lapse behind the scenes of how he shot this, and it's great. So go search him out on YouTube to find that. Now, Christina's winner, right? We used to start with the honorable mentions first, but you know what? We don't do it that way. We just go, why am I having so much trouble clicking? Here we go.
Why don't you open all of them? Because because I've got us on.
Oh, you got us on, so we can save the embarrassment of me clicking around like an old fool.
For suspense.
Why is it working so strangely?
You guys should see him trying to figure out how to play YouTube on the Roku.
Don't share that. That thing changes.
Okay.
God, the interface of that thing is so ridiculous.
Okay, am I the winner? Is it?
This isn't the winner. This. No, where'd it go?
Those are your winners.
There it is.
That's the winner.
Christina's the winner.
Ta-da! I didn't even know who this is by because I try to be as objective as possible.
Sacred Lens Photography.
I love the colors.
Winner, chicken dinner.
I love the colors. I
fantastic.
love that like very gunpowder, like steel blue and the bright red. It's so cool.
But it doesn't feel oversaturated.
It doesn't. No, it just
very nice.
rich. It's just
Rich. Great. Thank you, Sacred Lens Photography. Runner up.
Kyuki, he looks so angry. Also, lots of negative space. I said I wasn't. I didn't just pick it because it was cute. Just so people know, I just really like the use of the light, the directional light, and the very little spot. You know, he's in a spotlight or she's in a spotlight, and the gaze is just piercing.
Piercing. I got one issue with this.
What?
Hashtag death.
Oh.
Death by hashtags. Okay.
Oh, yeah, too many hashtags.
Too many hashtags. All right, let's move on to 1080.
So I love the light. So this is, we were talking about wraparound light last week. This is kind of what, you know, we were talking about. This really lovely, just like lots of beautiful highlights, and there, you know, the key light is filling in enough that you don't have, you know, your shadows are all, you know, you're not clipping any shadows. It's just really pretty. And I know how difficult it is to kind of capture a pet. So just the lighting combined with the expression and everything is just really well done. So
fantastic. Very nice.
Yes.
And a cute little story next to it too. I like that. So, okay. That means that it is now time for announcing next week's challenge.
Oh, that's right. So next week, guys, energy. How abstract of us.
I like these slightly, and this was suggested by one of you all. I like these slightly vague ones because it gives you some room to work and to think and to be creative.
Yep. So post your energy pictures with the hashtag PRTV_energy and follow us on Instagram.
Do you know what's full of a lot of energy?
Somebody in the chat already said that you did a really bad joke earlier. You gonna do another really bad joke?
What was the joke earlier? All my jokes today.
It was a vegetarian one. Okay, what has a lot of energy?
Pixie dust and fairy dust is full of energy.
How is that a joke?
I didn't say it was a joke. You're the one that jumped on the joke train.
You're setting it up like it was a joke.
It's a joke to some folks out there. Okay. Oh, Roy did the forum, and sorry, Roy, we picked the energy before we saw that. Thank you, though. We'll do this next time. Okay. Now, did you tell people they could follow us if they have a lot of energy, enough energy to push the little button on Instagram? They can follow us at PhotorecToby, and you are at...
And Christina Bernalis.
That's right. And you can gaze upon Christina's perfectly formed feed.
It's not perfect.
And determine, you can follow and see if she's going to go, is she going to delete that photo? Or will she just move on?
Am I going to delete that photo? I have thought about it.
I appreciate the cleanliness of your Instagram feed. At least you can keep something clean. But, man, that's mine.
Oh!
Mine is a mess.
That's a little
because
much.
I use it both to share pictures that I like and I'm proud of, and also to share things that are working on and ideas and goofy things like a dirty sensor that looks like a petri dish or the galaxies of stars above and all that stuff.
I dislike how limiting my neuroticness about keeping it looking a certain way is. It's very limiting because I can't post certain things. But
you could start a separate Instagram account. Christina Messy Bernalis.
That's just too much work.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the segment where I get to figure out if I can tell the difference between a photo taken with the Sony a7R Mark II and a photo taken with the Canon T6S. So, Toby went around with both cameras, the T6S and the Sony a7R Mark II, put the Sony a7R Mark II in a crop mode, and took the exact same picture using both cameras and the same lens.
Yep, same
focal
settings. Yep, all that stuff. Now, this is not scientific, and we certainly lose some of the benefits of shooting the Sony a7R when you're in crop mode.
Totally.
But still is a backside illuminated sensor that has now been ranked by DxO Mark Scores as the best sensor. Don't take that as the best camera, just take it as the best sensor based on their quantitative analysis. It has a really
awesome sensor.
Versus the Canon T6S, which a lot of people are like, that sensor is not up to today's standards, Canon. Yeah. So we just want to see. Just want to see.
I will put these samples up on the website.
Which one do I want to start
some
with?
point.
Are you sharing my screen yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's start with this one right here. Sometimes I was lazy. I'm making it big. Sometimes I was lazy and I just took a screenshot of them side by side in Lightroom. And sometimes I did careful resizing so that they would be exactly the same.
Can you bring that closer to me? I can't. I have to.
Yes, I can bring that closer to you.
Be able to inspect them very closely.
So this is 3200-3. 3200 means I shot this at ISO 3200. One of these is from the Canon T6S. One of these is from the Sony a7R Mark II. One of these cameras costs what? $800 body only, $799 I think. One of these cameras cost $3,200 and is that it? $3,199 I think.
Okay. Yikes. I really have no idea. Well, the focus is on a different part.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't always so good with focus, and I actually had to manually focus a lot with the Canon, the Sony, because that 50 does not want to work with the COM light adapter very well. I enjoy manual focus with the Sony.
I'm just gonna say that they are really similar.
Yep.
They are so similar. Are you sure this is not the same camera?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sure, and I can see. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, I can. You know.
I'm gonna say the right is the Sony. The one on the right is the Sony.
Oh, the right is Canon.
Are you serious?
The right is Canon. Yeah, we got a little bit more color noise back there in the corner. See that?
Do we?
Yeah. Look up here in this top left corner. I feel like there's more color noise in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, it's a little bit noisier, but at this size, you know, there's not huge differences. They're not huge differences. Let's do a beanie. Let's see this one here. Bean. This is also 3200 ISO.
This is the best.
Actually, you know what? I don't have good notes for this. I don't feel... we're going to skip that one because I don't feel like my notes were good enough for that. Let's go... I feel like... Oh, here we go. Image 1? No. Tomato Vine?
What is going on with this folder?
It's the camera card that I had magically entered and stuff on earlier, and I put them in Dropbox, but then the Dropbox wasn't going to sync in time.
Okay.
So here we go. Tomato Vine. Kind of backlit. Focus is not perfect here, but it's good enough, I think.
It's close enough.
Yeah. What do you think, Christina? So this Tomato Vine was shot at ISO 100. 1/4000th of a second, which is the maximum the Canon will go. Sony will go to 1/8000th of a second. And is this like
zoomed in a bunch?
This is, yes, this is cropped in almost 100%.
Oh, I wish they, okay, so there's different ones that are not cropped though, right? Or are they all pretty much cropped
They're all cropped a little.
Oh, I wish they weren't.
You wish they weren't?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. You should have given me better parameters.
Well, I didn't realize you were going to do this. Because that makes it, I feel like that kind of makes it harder.
I thought there would be able to see more detail, but you're right.
Well, sure, but we're not pixel peeping here. That's not the goal anyway.
All right.
Okay. I am going to say Don't stop showing me the answer. I don't want to see it.
I wasn't showing you the answer.
Gosh. I mean, except I can see minor color differences.
We can also,
but
I believe we can zoom, we can open this with preview and we can get even more detail if that you think that will help.
I don't, no. I don't need any more
You don't
detail
think one
than
will
that.
show you that it has more detail than the other?
I don't care about detail. I just
Okay.
want to see the overall picture. Okay, I have to make a decision, I know.
You do.
The right one is the Sony.
You are correct.
Okay.
Why did you say that?
You know, at a very minor degree, the dynamic range is a little bit better, but only marginally.
Okay. All right. Now this is one that I think will be interesting. The clue here is 1/15th of a second.
Oh, I see what. You just gave me the answer.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Why? How did I give you the answer?
Because the Sony stabilized. Sony's the left one.
You're right. Yep. So that's not a sensor comparison, so to speak. That is a feature comparison, and you can get sharp shots at 1/15th of a second when it's very hard to do that with Canon. Well then.
Are there any ones that aren't cropped?
This one gives it away too.
Yeah. So that the left one is the Sony.
Right. But this is amazing. A handheld at 1/4 of a second.
Yeah.
Look at that compared to the Canon.
That is amazing.
That is pretty awesome. You can go shoot landscapes without a tripod. I'm sorry to say that I pretty much cropped them all. Here's another ISO 3200. 3200-2. I bet everybody's riveted. What are they saying? Riveted.
I'm going to say the left is the Sony.
No, this is 3200-2. The left is the
Really?
Canon.
Well, the left is a lot sharper.
Well, that might have been a focus issue.
This is not only not very scientific.
You know what? I'm gonna regret saying this, but you need to do this next time and challenge me.
Okay.
You're gonna be taking
Yes.
better pictures,
Yep.
and I'm going to
Okay.
get them all wrong.
Why can't we do bean?
Because I don't remember if I 3200-3. Oh, wait. Sorry, this one. Where'd it go?
That you're on it.
Okay, I know. I remember because I messed up and I didn't write this down correctly. Oh, I know. We have another. We seem to be in the same one. Again, focus is a little bit off here.
No, it's not. It's fine.
No? Okay. There are some other ones where focus was off a little.
Sony's on the left.
That is correct. And the way I can remember and tell is the noise levels in the nose.
Yeah, it's a little cleaner.
Yeah, is definitely less. And I think one more worth doing, maybe, is there one in here called SU? Yeah. It's the succulent. Last one.
Gosh. It's really hard. I can't.
Somebody in the chat suggested you look for contrast. Adele, is that who said that? Adele said more contrast from the Sony.
No, wouldn't it be less contrast because the dynamic range is larger?
Yeah, but if we're these are JPEGs. Shot JPEGs, let them come straight out of the camera on standard setting.
I see. Yeah, but still. I feel left is Sony.
Left is Canon.
Well, I feel like
This is at ISO 100.
Okay.
Maybe it was 200.
They're really similar. The main differences for me are that the one on the right's a little bit more contrasty, but it's only because the light's different. Like if you can see the shadow right here,
Yep.
it's there's a little bit of sun peeking through, whereas there isn't here as much. So, okay, well that wasn't.
It was a blast. Let's come back to us because they're just looking at this
Supposedly the gain is
70D
going
Magic Lantern.
crazy right now. It may have been because I was leaning over and getting really close to the computer. Sorry about that.
Okay. So we should do this
We should do this again. Reverse it. I take the pictures.
You take some pictures
and you
show
do
it to
the
me.
guessing.
I think the takeaway here though is that I don't even know where the T6S is on the DxO Mark scores. I don't even know if I think they've scored it by now. I want people to pay less attention to that. I think people are getting that from our discussion, and pay more attention to the features the camera provides them. Of course, their budget too. And again, what sounds like a huge number, like somebody wrote me and said, DxO Mark scored the 5D SR 22 on the list. Do you agree with this? Well, I mean, yeah, I agree that they have come up with these quantitative bits, and as measured against the other sensors, that's where it ranks. But a difference from 1 to 22 sounds pretty significant. But in your day-to-day...
Sorry about that, folks. It looks like, oh, the camera's all tilted funny. Anyway.
Because I had to replace the battery, even though it's being powered by USB. That's disappointing. We haven't had that issue before. Before recording for a whole episode, or actually not recording to the camera, recording into the computer. It drains the internal battery some when it's plugged into USB, but not a lot. But apparently it completely died this time. So we'll have to investigate that some more. All right.
Was there anything else on the agenda?
No, let's get into reader questions.
Okay. It is 7:20 currently. Wow.
Well, we didn't really start. Okay. Reader questions. We got 7, then we're moving to the after show, folks. First question's from Dalibor. What lenses are you getting for the Sony? All right, well, the first lens I bought for myself, because again, I'm not convinced that I'm going to go full into Sony either, so I'm not really excited about shelling out big bucks. First lens I bought for myself is a used from B&H 28-70, that cheap kit lens that comes bundled with the Sony A7 Mark II. Part of me is a little like, oh, using that lens on the Sony A7R Mark II with its beautiful sensor, but you know what? For just general quick walk around, it's a great lens. We were quite happy with that lens when we used it on the A7 Mark II when we reviewed that camera back in the spring. And it cost me $299. So there, I got that. What lenses are coming tomorrow for review and testing that we'll be using at a couple weddings and for the travels coming up is the 55-1.8 and the 90 f2.8. And I will be testing other lenses down the road, but those are the first 2 coming in. So,
okay.
We're excited.
Yep.
I'd like to get myself, the next lens I'd like to probably buy myself for walk around is the 35 f2.8. That's small, excellent quality, nice focal length. I really like that lens. And it's not cheap though. So
next question by Roger is, what is the solution to preventing sensor DSLR?
Sensor dirt.
Sensor dirt, yes.
When you look at the dust, you go to Dust Aid. That is the kit that I was using for cleaning. And they have like this thing, here it is, preventative care, dust shield. I don't understand how this works. Stop dust and debris in its tracks with a new patent pending, and we're not paid by these folks, and I don't know if this works at all, but I'm just reading it like a commercial. With this new patent pending dust shield, the optic quality disposable filter for DSLR camera chambers helps to deflect dust from entering the chamber when changing lenses. This optic filter has the highest light transmittance possible, which allows for unobstructive autofocusing and image capture. Simply place dust shield within your DSLR camera body and the chamber area is protected from external dust. Now you can change lenses without the concern of dust entering your sensor chamber. To remove the shield, simply apply an adhesive tab on its center and gently pull up. Wow. So is it basically a piece of clear tape that sits there inside your camera?
And it covers the sensor?
It covers the sensor.
I don't know about that.
David Newton, a product reviewer for Canon Professional Network, agrees, I skipped some part, but says, the dust shield did not seem to have adversely affected the image quality in any visible way.
You sound like an infomercial right now.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was going for. Here's what I want to know though, is your dust doesn't show up until you're shooting up about f14 or so. when the dust shield is in there and it's got dust stuck on it, and you're shooting up around f14,
All right.
I kind of feel like that shows up.
That's a little funny. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's such a good point.
The first available dust shield will be for the Canon 5D and 5D Mark II. Oh, how old is this? Dust shields will be released periodically. Let's go to Amazon and search dust shields and see what people are talking about.
Let's drag this on.
Dust shield. Here's the thing, Roger. I don't think it's a very big deal, especially for DSLR owners.
You don't think that having to clean the sensor repeatedly would have any kind of wear on it?
No.
Really?
It's a piece of glass on there, Christina. It's a piece of glass over your sensor. As long as you're careful, I think you're fine. Dust shield, dust aid. You know what? It's not coming up on Amazon, which, no, there it is. Dust Aid DA10 Shield. Sells for $6. It's got 3 customer reviews and 4 stars. It helps, but it is not all. If you bought a 5, these are old too. The most recent review is 2013, December. The product's discontinued. So that says to me that, you know what? There is no great way. You can shoot with weather-sealed lenses. You can minimize the amount of lens changing you do. You can be careful about where you change your lenses, but dust is going to eventually get in there. It's not something that will keep me up at night. I might start losing some sleep over on the Sony side of things, but for typical DSLR owners, it's not a big deal. If you do get a couple dust spots, you can clean them off with a $15, $20 kit, or you can just post-process. I mean, half of the dust doesn't show up, unless it's the sky. So, okay.
Okay.
Next question. So Canon auto sensor cleaning also does nothing. Oh, from Rod. Let's go to Aubrey for a sec. Do you turn off the camera when changing lenses? No. And that may be something I should start doing with the Sony because that sensor is right there. Some people do recommend doing that because when it's on, it may have a little bit more of a static charge to it, which attracts the dust in.
So you have to turn the camera off and back on every time you change a lens?
You're supposed to. There are people who recommend that for Canon as well.
I can see you doing that if there's no pressure to, get a certain shot, but
yeah,
it just doesn't seem.
Yeah, Aubrey,
practical.
I don't do it, and I'm fine with that. And Roger says, so Canon auto sensor cleaning also does nothing, right? I don't know. I need to do some test shots. I don't know. I think it might do something more than nothing, but I'm not sure how much it is. Brady wants to know, is the Rocket better than the knockoffs, or are all the same?
We've only ever used the Rocket.
We've only
blower.
ever used this, but I mean, how hard can it be to make a little rubber bladder attached to a plastic straw? I think that
Be surprised.
they're probably all about the same. Have heard ridiculous stories of people in airport security getting these confiscated because they look bomb-like. I heard one story, to be honest, So, Gilherm wants to know, for making a time-lapse video, what's the basic calculation so I know how many photos I need to shoot? Is it something like 24 times length desired for the video?
Isn't there an app that you
Yes.
just bought on the Sony that does that for you, which is pretty cool?
Yes, well, the time-lapse app that you have to buy on the Sony camera after spending $3,200 for a camera really nicely tells you how long your video is going to be based on how many shots you're taking, and it runs back. And the Canon does that for the movie intervalometer mode as well. But if you, it depends on how fast you plan to play it back. 24 frames a second, then you want to divide by 24. So let's say you shoot your time lapse every 1 second. So in 24 seconds, you'll have 1 second of video. Got that? And stop playing with that. And the best thing I can tell you is get yourself a little app. The Trigger Trap app, which is also a very nice time-lapse system, has calculators in it for you. Or just Google or go to your app store or the iTunes store, time-lapse app, and very nicely there's a bunch of free little apps that'll be like, yeah, if you want to run it for, you're taking a picture every minute and you want a video that's 20 minutes long, how long are you going to be there for? forever. Keep this in mind, folks. Very few time lapses that you want to run, anybody's going to want to watch for more than a couple of seconds. Unless,
even like really, really good ones.
Yeah, even really, really good ones. You want to shoot different shots, different scenes.
Yeah.
Think about all the good time-lapse videos you've seen.
Like 5
They're
seconds tops.
5 or 10.
5.
Okay, she's usually right about these things. Unless it is a sunset to stars rising in the sky. That can be a little bit longer because you've got a transition, something interesting.
But that's a different kind of video, I feel like.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Bruins fan wants to know, are Instagram challenges limited to photos or can videos be entered? Yep, they're limited to photos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so, right?
I think we're going to probably lean towards photos most of the time, but if there is a video...
If you have a compelling video to share that is within the theme, then go for it.
That's right. Okay.
Last question from HK. Which lens did you use for the side-by-side comparison earlier? The 51.8 from Canon.
The Canon 51.8. You mounted it on the Sony using the adapter and, of course, on the Canon.
Yep.
A little STM lens. It's a nice little lens, but the comm light adapter in it on the Sony don't like focusing so much.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't given it a thumbs up and you enjoyed this crazy mashup of lots of different things, then please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe for some more videos. We're going to be traveling next week to Paris and then Greece, and we're going to make some awesome vlogs. So if you want to be notified when those are up, then be sure to subscribe.
Right.
And
having a lot of fun creating video.
Yeah, I agree. Me too.
It is.
It's challenging.
I love making a beautiful photo, but there's something about creating these little video clips that I'm really enjoying.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well, I guess we will see you guys on Tuesday next week when we are all frantically trying to pack and do everything.
I'm going to be all packed already. You're not?
That's what you say. All right.
Thanks so much for watching. Now,
goodbye.
the after show.